And as I'm stepping on the Q&A part of the session, I will start the first question to Gunur, although it's not my okay, Sophie, maybe because she didn't have the opportunity, maybe
Yes.
to close, just sharing what is the most exciting part of your job in this social transformation. And thank you very much to all.
Thanks. I hope I'm audible now. After playing hide and seek for a couple of times. I think the most exciting part of my job and part of my social sustainability has been the evolution of somebody's development from where they start, which is primarily zero, because they don't come from colleges, they don't come from hospitality background. So from there to making them one of the hoteliers where guests are recognizing their efforts, I think it's a huge jump and a leap of faith, which is very satisfying to see.
It's pride again. That's the beauty of what you were saying, Paul. It's very true. When you engage the pride of people in what they do, it's the start of a virtuous circle. Thank you for this conversation. Sorry about all the technical issues. Well, hopefully we're going to be able to hear all of you now. It's time for Q&A, so we brought everyone back on stage, and I guess I'd like to first ask our guests if they have any questions or remarks about what was discussed this morning before I start asking the questions of our audience. Anyone? Don't be shy.
I don't know whether it's a question, but just sort of conscious of the forum we're in, which is women in leadership. And one of the things that there's a fascinating narrative about, and I don't know whether it's something you want to put a little bit of time to, or whether it's already something that's been discussed previously, but the importance of women in leadership in this transformation. And I know that from an environmental point of view, I mean, when people talk about the planet, they don't usually talk about Father Earth, right? It's always Mother Earth. And so this whole sort of connection with nurturing and appreciating sort of the source of opportunity that planet Earth provides us. It's fascinating to think about whether our relationship with the planet would be different if women were actually more prominent in leadership roles, in those decision-making roles. And maybe that's a little too deep for now, but I couldn't help but join those dots in the context of this conversation.
Thank you for doing it for me, actually. You're absolutely right. And there's actually a lot of research that's been doing, I'm sure you know about it, on sustainable farming and how the correlation between successful sustainable farming in Africa and women farmers. It's remarkable how more sustainable the lands that have been given to women farmers have been than to their male counterparts. So, and there's as well a lot of research being doing on fighting poverty in communities, and healthcare and education, better healthcare, better education when women are given the economic tools to do so. Very true. Anyone wants to comment on that very quickly before I ask?
I was going to say, we do call it Mother Earth for a reason. And, it's funny because when I was working on my book, I didn't set out to do this, but after I was working on it for a while and writing, I turned to my research assistant. I said, everybody who's doing anything great in this book is a woman, Kalpona Akhtar being one of them. And I realized that all the change makers, except for denim, because denim is a guy's thing. Oh my gosh, is the denim industry a guy's thing? But everybody else was women. And actually the woman who was changing the indigo business is a woman. So not completely, denim isn't completely a man's world. So I wound up writing a book about women change makers, even though that's not what I set out to do, because they were the ones who were the forces in all the good.
Yeah, and nature itself, if you look at nature, it's all about balance. So if we keep this balance, we just repeat and mirror what nature has been created for, and what. But we can. If we start this conversation, we'll never finish it. Can I ask a question that Deepti has put in the chat? It's I think it's very much related to the fashion. I have a dilemma: how to overcome need for those in challenged financial situations to access fashion in my travels. The joy and confidence girls and women get from dressing well seems pretty universal. Do we need to start brands who contribute to giving those in poverty a universal access to quality, sustainable clothing?
Well, no, not quality, sustainable clothing, but definitely junky throwaway clothing. You know, absolutely, you know, and it's what's nice is one of the things I write about in the book is there are all sorts of really great startups and young entrepreneurs who are starting these independent sustainable clothing labels, and they're not the price of Stella McCartney. Stella McCartney is the first one to say, I'm a luxury designer and I sell clothes at a luxury price, but you can buy them on the sale, you can buy them on the sale, you can buy them at resale, you can buy them at, you can rent them. So there are options. And then there are all sorts of really cool young brands that are just a little bit more than your fast fashion brands, but you're buying organic or you're buying sustainable fashion. And it's sustainable not just in the materials, but also that they're not overproducing, that they're not creating waste, that they're, you know, selling what you need and not more. I bought a really beautiful white cotton shirt from a company called Careful, just like it sounds, care and then full, F-U-L-L, at a pop-up in London. And I think it cost me £100, but it's the best shirt I'll ever own because the cotton, I mean, you put it on, you're like, oh, it's just so much better. And it's going to last me so much longer than the 70 euro or 70 pound cotton shirt I would have bought at Uniqlo. So, you know, go just patronize the good folks and stay away from the guys who are just getting rich.
What I had a question about the waste. Where does it go? Because we heard about 85% of the fabric that's produced is going to waste. Where does it go?
Landfill. And since 60% of it is polyester, it never biodegrades. And then when it does biodegrade, the ones that do, they're filled with all these toxic chemicals and dyes that seep into our water system and our water table and into our soil. But it just sits there in landfill or it's burned. And so then they're creating going into the air and it's just a big fat mess. You know what? It's a big fat mess. It's like anything else. When you throw something away, it doesn't go away. It goes somewhere.
And it goes in someone's village or someone's town as well that has to face the consequence of our production. A question from Patricia. How are your organizations working with governments and societies to create a sustainable change in the whole system? I would like maybe Paul and Clement to respond to that. Gonor as well, because you all work with governments at some point. Clement,
yeah, okay, I got it. So yes, we do have different programs that, I mean, we have for the ecology, the environment, it's Go Green, and then we partner with a lot of with the governments, with also the UN. You know, we have all the sustainability goals that published by the UN. So we do partner with them on the ground in many different countries. We of course partner with a lot of NGOs as well. We have actually also we have committed to spend 1% of our global profit on supporting actually the social enterprise or NGOs, and of course generally we also partner with governments because this has a better impact. The more stakeholders you have, the better impact you have. So we are actually very actively working with government and social enterprises on the ground to make things happen. Yeah.
Gonor?
So in Marriott, we've got something called the Marriott Business Council. And one of the pillars that I chair for them is called Serve 360, which encompasses sustainability, environmental and social. So as part of that, we do a lot of initiatives around the environment and social sustainability. And in Dubai, we've got the DTCM, that's Dubai Tourism Board, who's very supportive of all the initiatives we do at the hotels. So we do work very closely with the local authorities to roll out initiatives across all hotels in UAE. And it's done with Married Business Council. We are a group of general managers who form the core committee, and we drive these initiatives really with a lot of structure, with the government, with nonprofit organizations, with other general managers in the hotels. So that's how we really drive it very passionately.
Isabela, I have a question for you. You're facing this new generation that we say, at least it's common saying, that they are extremely invested in the change of the way we treat our planet and people. Do you see it on a day-to-day? and what do you do to accompany that movement or that change in the mindsets?
Yeah, well, actually, in the university we have students that are range from 18 to 60, so we have all of the generations. We do notice that the undergrads, of course, that Gen Z, they are predisposed, and they are really looking forward to seeing and listening to that content inside their classrooms, no? And of course, that the environment in which we operate, the university, the campus, is being coherent with the content. There's nevertheless, and I think this is a behavioral thing we have to change in any generation, and is that that we are used to things that are very comfortable, and they make our lives easy. Okay, so that's something uncomfortable, changing habits. But it's also about access. So I guess that most of us that are here, we have a computer, we have nice homes where we live, and maybe we can afford that extra cost of the sustainable offer. And I think this is part of the challenge, is how to cope this transition so that it's environmentally and socially friendly, with access of the great majority of the population to certain standards of living that being unfriendly with the environment has made possible. So I answer giving a reflection back, no, like, and I think it's not so easy, and that the analysis is complex, and so everyone is, of course, we all want to do better, and our students, of course, they want things to be better, but how to do it without leaving anyone behind is, I think, the most pressing issue.
Jackie's asking to all of you, actually, what's the biggest obstacle to really progress on social and environmental sustainability in your area of work, considering how multifaceted and complex it is? Who wants to start?
I'm happy to go, Sophie. So, I mean, you talked about governments and working with them. It can be pretty slow moving, and that can be a huge obstacle to change, because they do leverage so much power. But this is, I guess, why we're all here. We talked about it before, is about the people power and the collective action that we can put pressure on governments and others to make change. So I think from here, it'd be really good to, Paul talked about it so brilliantly and eloquently, and taking away, what can everyone take away from today and take an action that will make themselves feel proud that they've contributed to that change. And whether it is following some of us on social media, signing up to newsletters, making a donation to support garment workers, whatever it is, how go away feeling proud that you've learnt, hopefully, something, but you've also taken that next step to an action, however simple or complex it might be.
Who wants to go next?
So for our organization, I would say, I mean, technology is there and is developing. Obviously, there is always a constraint, but I think it's coming. So I think that it's still very much the public awareness And when I say public, I have to say even also our own employees. That's why we have actually launched a sustainable training that has become mandatory for all our 600,000 employees. Just at least they understand the challenge. It's the first step, because I mean, I'm in South Africa. I've lived in Asia for 20 years. Depending where you live, you don't see the problem the same way also. I think in Europe, we might be a little bit more advanced than in many other parts of the world. But of course, especially when it's about the environment, that was my case when I was living in Vietnam. Every morning I want to go for my jog, I had to check the air quality. And sometimes I was decided to stay in bed a bit longer because I knew it would kill me to go out and run. And so some people really feel it in their daily lives. Some, they don't have an idea. And generally, I think, unfortunately, the real polluters are not the ones living in the pollution cloud. And I think it's really the awareness and as the public, because once people, and I think we just spoke about that for the fashion as well, once people really are aware of it and the impact that they personally can have, then things will change much faster. And now we tend to leave it to governments, and agree with Raakhi, the governments are not always doing the right things, or they are very slow because the next election is coming and they don't want to lose voters. And so then that's why also companies like us, we have to take the action, and we need to train our own people. And hopefully at home, they will speak to their families, because with 600,000 people, we might be touching maybe about 2 million people at home, and if every company does that. But I think it's really the public perception and awareness that they need to understand that it's not because you wake up with a blue sky that the planet is doing fine.
The role of education, I have to say.
Exactly.
Yeah, look,
Paul,
thanks. Like amazing thoughts. And I think that we focus on individual action because we know everybody can participate in that. And to me, that's extremely important. And particularly if it's a chance to build that connection and that pride. But ultimately, sort of game theory makes it clear that there's always people who will win by not doing the right thing. And the only way you actually stop that happening, and remember that it only takes a few people proportionally not doing the right thing to really mess up our planet. And so that's where it comes back to governments and leadership. And I think that's, of course, in democracies, that's driven by the individuals again. So there's an opportunity there. And that's where people who are proud of their environment, and particularly people who are proud of what they're doing to help the environment, are so much more likely to actually vote for a government and a leadership that will reinforce their choices to do the right thing by the environment. So the best way to get people to vote for a leadership will do the right thing by the environment is to give them the opportunity to do something good for the environment. There's a really nice circularity in all of that. But fundamentally, leadership is what we need, because many of the problems facing the planet are multi-generational problems. Sorry, they're going to take multiple generations to solve. And many of the costs, like climate change is the great example, right? The wicked problem. The costs of fixing it come on this generation and the next one, but the benefits won't accrue for the generation after that. So you've got to have individuals who care about people who don't exist right now. Some people are like that, some aren't. But what you really need is leaders who care about the long-term future of their society. And I don't mean to suggest that that's easily solved, but I think it's really important that we focus on the individual action, but also the responsibility of leaders in all of this.
Legacy. In hospitality, Gunnar, what is the main obstacle?
I think based on my experience, I think the biggest obstacle becomes the guests themselves. So we're trying to make changes in the hotels for the benefit of the guest. For example, the hotel I lead is a LEED Platinum certified hotel. And as part of a requirement, we said, well, it's a no smoking hotel because we're LEED Platinum certified. And the amount of complaints you end up getting is, there's no understanding of what you're trying to do for the bigger good. And there are smoking areas outside of the hotel, which is possibly just an elevator. But I think the guests come in the way. Now, there's another initiative we're trying to do in Dubai called the Dubai Can, which basically means we're going to eliminate a lot of plastic in the hotels. And I know people would go back, so that means they'll have to refill their water bottles with the filters we put connected to the municipality line. But I know a lot of guests would disagree with it and say, we want our plastic bottles back. So I think for hospitality, it's very difficult for us to find that balance to keep the guest happy and meet the sustainability goals. It's a very tough balance, I must admit.
I can see Isabela nodding. I can sense the, oh yes, I can, same issue here.
The habits. It's the habits. It's so difficult to overcome. I want to say something, and many times, and this is something we brought as part of our challenge this year in the university, was bringing social and environmental action as volunteering hours in different activities. I think that many times, and this is in line with what Clement was saying, if you're aware of how you impact and the consequences of your actions, I think this can drive the change. And by doing volunteering your time, you get a sense that once you do something, it doesn't go away. It's there, and you have to take care of it also.
I agree. You know, that's why I wrote the book, because I felt like most people just don't know. I mean, they don't know how their clothes are made. I mean, brands say, oh, we didn't know our clothes were being made in that factory. Well, if the brand doesn't know, how does the consumer know, right? So that's why I wrote the book, because I feel like if we're informed, then we make informed decisions. And I think that's the biggest obstacle, honestly, is just information, honest to good, true, correct, reliable information, not greenwashing, not spin, not, you know, arguing on social media and people trying to sway you, but just like laying it out. And that's why I wrote the book, because, and people have told me after they've read it, they're like, I look at my closet differently. I'm shopping differently. And I'm like, yes, it worked. So, you know, I think once we know, as Isabela said, once we know, and even, you know, in hospitality, like once you know that if you said you had some sort of information packet about or card saying we don't have plastic bottles anymore because there are gazillions of plastic bottles in the world and they don't go anywhere and they never biodegrade, people might go like, oh, all right. So it's a pain, but we have to adapt. And that's what it comes down to. We don't like change, but we got to change. And we change all the time, whether we realize it or not. So let's just do it, and let's do it in an informed manner.
Talking about information, because social media could be a great way to get information, but with I don't know if you've seen recently, a brand just got in trouble because they were using kids social influencer to basically sell junk food. I won't name names, but where do we find independence and unbiased information about sustainable production? Not influencers, not
right.
PR,
places
no
like
spin.
the UN. The UN is very involved in this. I was in Milan giving a speech when they launched their sustainability pledge, and there's the UN FCCC, which is the fashion charter. And you go on the UN website and you're going to find all sorts of information that's right there, and it's very easy and digestible to read. I mean, the sustainability pledge was 450 pages long. Nobody's going to read that, but there is an abstract that you can read. It's a paragraph long, and you go, oh, okay. And then you see who the signatories are, and you go, okay, I'll patronize those brands because they're engaged with the UN to meet these sustainability marks, you know, these goals that we must reach by 2030 and 2050 if we want to save catastrophe, stop catastrophe and save the planet, and carry on going to the beach without having to wear 150 SPF. So I would say start with that. Start, with the UN, and then from there it kind of spins out. There's all sorts of other organizations like the Circle and like Oxfam and other great NGOs that will just tell you straight up how it is. I mean, these people work for no money. They're doing it for the good of the humanity and the planet. They're not doing it to line their pockets,
Can I ask a risky question? What about sustainability indexes indices?
Well, some of them, I mean, there's so many, it's kind of fractured. And that's one of the things that the UN is trying to do with the sustainability pledge, is sort of pull it together in one place. And because it is, you know, there's a sustainability coalition, there's the fashion pact, there's a la 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 la. And so that's why the UN is stepping in. And Prince of Wales is doing some things with Cambridge University, and trying to also sort of pull it together. So there's some continuity, and there's like a one-stop shopping. But that's why I said the UN, because they are really working on doing that, because that's what they do. They unite us.
I think Sophie's connection went off now.
Yes.
Okay. So I think we're out of time already. So I just want to thank all of the panelists for being here. I enjoyed a lot the conversation, and this is a brave new world post-COVID. We're online, and I hope a brave new world that we are changing the way we do businesses. So thanks, and let's move the sustainability everywhere. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Inspiring.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.